Welcome back to another episode of the Suits in the Stadium podcast. I am your host, Casey Coleman. Joining me on this week's episode is Joseph Wood, aka Woody. Woody is currently an associate AD for football administration at the University of Southern California. Really enjoyed my conversation with Woody. I think one of the biggest things I took away, and Woody is not the first guest to talk about this, but I love when it gets highlighted, is when I asked the question about work-life balance. Now, obviously, work-life balance is a question that we seem to continually get different answers to on this podcast. But something that he shared and a few other guests in the past have shared is that, yes, though it takes away from family time, it also allows his family to experience in some amazing opportunities right alongside him. He mentioned the previous Rose Bowl that the USC won, and his parents got to be there and be a part of that moment and be there with him to experience those things. I think it's so cool when you really are able to bring your family along on those adventures, bring your family along to those games or those different things that you can be a part of together, that you can reminisce about together, that you can make memories together and look back on years down the road. So yes, working in sports may be tiring. Yes, it may have odd hours, but there are some times where you get to bring friends, family, loved ones along to experience those things right alongside you. So really enjoyed my conversation. Hope you enjoyed my conversation with Joseph Wood. Folks, please help me welcome in this week's guest, Joseph Wood, aka Woody, as I know him. Joseph is currently the associate athletic director for football administration at USC. He's also spent time working for the Seattle Mariners, the University of Washington football, as well as the Seattle Storm and the Seattle Supersonics. Woody, how are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm glad to be here, Casey.
Awesome. So pumped to have you. We get to work together. We've got to work together this past football season as I'm an intern in game management. You're obviously on staff with USC. Reached out to have you on the pod, and here you are. So super excited to have you and learn a little bit about your journey in sports.
Yeah, definitely. Looking forward to it.
Love it. Well, we'll jump right in. What pivotal experiences in your education or early career helped you realize the sports industry was the right path for you?
Yeah, I was always an athlete growing up, played sports in high school, and then got to college and had that moment where I was deciding between probably a smaller school or a large university. And was it going to be the small school and play baseball was my sport, or go to a larger university? And for me, growing up in Northern California, we had football tickets, season tickets to the Cal Bears, and there were some good years during that time. Jeff Tedford was there, and a lot of good years, and a lot of good players came out during that time. But made the decision to go to a big school, and to fill that void, I started playing sports intramurally, and then ended up working for the football team my senior year there, and really just loved being back in the team environment. And I think that was one of those times that I realized how many more jobs there were in sports, and really how many people were involved in putting on a football game day, much less all the other things that go into college athletics. And so I was hooked at that point. It was my senior year, and I was trying to figure out what I was going to do once I graduated, um, and was fortunate enough that a position was kind of opened up for me to intern and continue on after my senior year. But I would really say kind of getting to college, filling that void of not playing sports competitively anymore, but still having them in my life and being involved in them.
Fantastic, fantastic. In the ever-evolving world of sport management, how do you stay updated and continue to learn beyond formal education? Are there ongoing educational experiences or resources you would recommend?
Yeah, I think there's a lot to stay in tune with these days. There's so much has changed in the industry, and it continues to evolve pretty much on a daily basis now. We joke about that administratively here on campus, how it used to be some new things would come, every month or so, and then it became every week, and now it feels daily. We're dealing with a lot of challenges on our campuses and across the nation. The D1 ticker is something that I know a lot of people subscribe to, and it's something to definitely keep in tune with. There's a lot of resources out there like that, but keeping tabs on what's going on nationally, kind of what those hot topics are. And I think the networking, it's funny, I have one of my colleagues at one of the other Pac-12 schools who I've known for some years now, and he and I have a standing call every Monday morning. We're both driving into work, and so we spend about 30 minutes on the phone talking about what's going on. And
Yeah.
there's a few of those guys that I rely on and call on a weekly basis, but he specifically every Monday morning we get in the car about the same time, and we know the phone's going to ring, and we're going to chop it up and solve all the world's problems, as they say.
Right.
So those are some of those resources, but I think it's talking to people, and keeping tabs on what's going on around the country and in different conferences, different schools, because it's all going to come around and affect us at one point or another.
Yeah, love it. Love that you started the mentor conversation. We'll get to that in a later question, but love
Yeah.
that we're starting it off. Next question I selfishly put in. Thankfully, I've found a job in sports, so I don't have to ask it personally for myself, but I think it still applies to a lot of people. What advice would you have for individuals who are considering a career in sport management, but may not have a traditional sports related educational or work experience background? How can they leverage their existing skills and knowledge to break into the industry?
Yeah, the thing I always tell young people is doing as many different things as you can. Um, it's picking up skills in a lot of different areas, but also trying different things to figure out what you like. And for me specifically, being at the University of Washington, I started in the equipment room there, and that really showed me and laid the foundation of what all these different departments do to move a football team, to put on a game day. And when you're putting all these people on a plane and flying across the country, or even just south to California at that time,
Hmm.
what all goes into that? You've got a truck going on the road, you've got a development staff that's joining, and there's some donors coming. You've got your athletics director's office and all of those things. Um, to me, it was understanding those different areas, and then I was fortunate to work in a few of those different areas on campus. So I always tell people, as much as you can do in different areas, whether it be in sports or other industries, I think it's really important, and it makes you more well-rounded. But the other thing I like to tell people is that it also gives you perspective on when you are an administrator or move up in a position, how your decision affects all those different departments. And I think
Yeah.
that's the really important part. When I moved into a director of football operations role, when we make a decision, like it's getting a little bit of rain in LA right now, if we make a decision to move fields, it's not just, okay, hey, coaches and players were going out to a different field today. It's, well,
Yeah.
where are the video guys? Do they have enough time to get their cameras out there? Are the
Uh-huh.
equipment guys moving? Have we moved the trainers' trunks? Do we have everything we need? And so it's making sure that communication goes down, but understanding that it takes all of those people to run things. And if you don't communicate it, nothing's going to be successful from that standpoint.
Yeah, that's good. It's not just one person moving. Everyone's got to move.
Correct.
But rain doesn't happen that often, so hopefully you don't have to deal with
No,
that too much.
not too much, but it throws a wrench in everything. But
Sure.
we adapt and we adjust, and that's something you always have to be prepared for in this industry, is just being able to adapt and adjust to what's going on, because no matter how well you lay out the plans, something's going to change, and you've got to adapt, especially when you're working with coaches and college athletes. That's for sure.
Yeah. You worked approximately 19 years so far in the sport management field. At least that's as far back as your LinkedIn went. To what or to whom do you credit your longevity to this point in the sports world?
Yeah, it's really, I think what I touched on is being able to experience working in a lot of different areas. You touched on a few of the places that I have worked. I was fortunate to sell tickets at one point for the Seattle Mariners, but was doing it in the Seattle Mariners team store. They have some satellite team stores, and so this one
Okay.
was downtown. And
Okay.
so it was the old Ticketmaster platform. And it was basically coding in essence, because you
Hmm.
really had to know the specifics, and learned how to do that. And that was able to get me a job with the Seattle Sonics and the Seattle Storm, and would work their game days in the box office. And then from that, it was, hey, we need some help down on the floor. So next thing I know, I'm out there throwing out t-shirts at halftime, and, escorting people out around the arena, doing things like that.
Yeah.
Parlayed that into event management at Washington, doing some of the things that you're getting to get to do here at
Yeah.
USC. And so I say all that, I think the longevity has been that I've been able to try so many different things and kind of hone in on an area that I really enjoy, and work with a lot of great people. My experience in the equipment room at Washington really did lay that foundation, exposed me to so much. The equipment manager that was there at that time is still at the University of Washington, and I definitely credit him a lot with the stuff that he taught me, and kind of laid the foundation for where I am today.
Yeah, love it again. Just going back to that mentor and those other people that have believed in us. Again, we'll still get to that question in a second, but
Yeah.
I love that
I
we're
keep
getting
jumping
ahead.
ahead, Casey. I keep
No,
jumping
I love
ahead.
it. It's my favorite question to ask because I love just, so many people in the sports world. We didn't get here. We didn't get where we're at on our own, and we won't accomplish things on our own. And it takes a team. And anyway,
Definitely.
I'm myself. Uh, moving to the advice portion of our conversation, what are the key skills or qualities you believe aspiring sport management professionals should focus on developing to stand out in a very competitive job market?
Yeah, it is really competitive. Getting those experiences, I think you really need to be calm, cool, collected, understand that it's going to be high pressure. You're going to have people that are going to disagree with you, and understanding kind of that chain of command. There are going to be decisions that are made sometimes that you may not agree with, but you full heartedly need to pull in that direction for the betterment of the organization. And in the long run, if everybody's doing that same thing, we're all going to be wrong. It's going to be right. That's something that football coaches say a lot. If you've got, 11 men out on the field and they all get the wrong play and communicate that, at least they're going to be right because they're all going to be in sync doing that. So I think that's really important. And, I don't know. There's a lot of other things I guess that I could speak to, but that stuff is definitely important at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. You touched on it a little bit, even a second ago in your example of having to move practice and these last minute things. The sports industry is known for its high pressure moments. How do you personally maintain your composure and make strategic decisions during intense situations?
Yeah, I don't know how I do it myself necessarily. I think it's something that a lot of us that work in this industry just have.
Sure,
We know how to work under pressure and under stress. And I think there's a lot of athletes just have that naturally because we've been in those competitive environments our entire lives. And that's why you see a lot of people who've competed athletically at high levels work in athletics because I think we have that innate ability to stay calm, collected, and kind of block out the outside noise, for lack of a better phrase. Um, I think it's interesting. I learned early on that the job always has to get done, and I think there is that humbling moment when you're working as an equipment staff or a support staff member that win or lose, there are jobs that need to get done. There are decisions that need to be made. Um,
sure,
we've been through some really high highs here at USC in my time. We've been through some lows. But, whether we had just won the Rose Bowl or, whether we lost several games in a row, the team still has to get out of the locker room. We got to get on
sure.
the buses. We've got to get on an airplane. We've got to get home. We've got to have food. We've got to be ready for the next day. And so I think maintaining that perspective and that calmness is really important. I think we being athletes definitely are able to do that better than some other people probably who haven't been in those situations.
Yeah. I mean, anytime I see you on the sideline at USC, you seem as cool as a cucumber. So if you're stressed, I'd never know it.
Yeah, it's funny. Coach Helton, who was here before, he used to say he could never tell if it was a good day or a bad day with me, and sometimes he hated it, but other times he thought it was great. So
Yeah,
I've always tried to maintain that composure because I think the people around you really react to that too.
yeah,
If you're stressing out, the people under you are going to stress out and freak out. And it's important with our student athletes to show that, hey,
sure.
things may be going crazy, but if you behind the scenes are working on them and getting them solved, you can be calm and cool and collected, and they will
Yeah,
respond in that same way.
yeah, absolutely. We've made it to the mentor question. I'm so excited. Uh, so who were some of those different mentors that you leaned on in your journey leading up to where you're at today at USC? And then how would you say they most helped you or equipped you along your journey?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think, Bart Fulmer, who I mentioned, the equipment manager at Washington, was probably that one mentor early, kind of when I got started. I think I haven't had maybe some of the true mentors that other people have had in the industry that they've always kind of relied on and gone back to.
Okay.
I moved here and took an assistant director of football operations role. And I worked under a DFO here for a few years. And then he left, and I kind of took over and was doing a lot of things on my own.
Okay.
And so I think, my answer may be a little bit different than you probably have heard before, but my mentors have been my counterparts, I would say.
Love it.
I was very lucky to be in this role, kind of a little bit younger in my career, I'd say, and was able to be put in some opportunities to be on a Rose Bowl advisory committee, to be on a college football playoff advisory committee, to do
Nice.
some national committees and meetings, and really networked at those, and then use those relationships, I think, to help mentor myself and mentor others, I would hope. And so, some of these people that I call and talk to are people that I've known for a long time. They kind of were in it with me in the trenches, and we would figure it out together. Hey, how are you doing this? Is there a better way to do this? So
Yeah.
I think it's been a lot of my peers
Okay.
rather than maybe usually we talk about mentors and think about somebody that we look up to who's done it before us
Sure.
or is a little bit older. So I think my experience was a little bit different, but it's been very unique and I really enjoyed it. I also feel like at a certain point you get thrown in the fire. How are you going to respond? And sometimes we have to do that to learn. And when you make those mistakes, you usually don't make them again. To me,
Right.
that's always how I've learned the most.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. No, I think that's great. Yeah. I mean, sometimes we have the traditional route, sometimes we don't. And yeah, you lean on the people that you have around you. And I had, I guess, use the term horizontal networking. And
Yeah.
it sounds like it's like you said, it's horizontal because they're in the same position, but at a different school or with a different, organization or something like that. So I think that's
Yeah.
awesome.
I think the only other thing I'd elaborate on that is just being in the coaching world too.
Sure.
Being a support staff member pretty much my whole career. There's a lot of people that want to be coaches or other things, and they have a lot of mentors. For me, I would say that coaches were my mentors,
Okay.
but I worked with them, being a peer of theirs. And I
Yeah.
think you learn from all those different people at the end of the day, and it's what tools can you pick up? What are things that you see that other people are doing that, hey, maybe I don't want to do it that way. And if
Yeah.
I'm in this role someday, I'm not going to do it that way because, maybe that's not what I believe in or how I want to do it. So
Yeah.
I think being in the coaching world is definitely a lot different, but there are some coaches that I would say have helped mentor me for sure and open
Yeah.
my eyes to different things. And yeah, it all helps at the end of the day to make you more well-rounded and all
Right.
those things.
Yeah, it all comes together. You
Yeah.
hit on the networking word in your answer there, so we're going to lead into the networking question. Thank you for
Yeah.
helping me with that. Networking plays a crucial role in many industries. How can individuals new to the field effectively build a strong network in the sport management sector?
Yeah, I try to do a lot of informational interviews when I can. I know a lot of people do that and do that through schools and other things.
Yep.
I find that stuff's important. I wish I had to do that when I was younger because I was probably a little bit shy and maybe more inexperienced in that area. But I do think that is really advantageous. There are a lot of people who I've done calls with over the years that I still talk to. And then I think it's going to national conventions or other things and just meeting people. When you're at those conventions or other meetings, people are interested in meeting people and talking to people. And so it's how many people can you talk to? What can you learn from somebody? And hey, you may meet somebody and you don't connect. That's fine.
Yeah.
There's going to be more people that you can
Right.
connect with. And so I think I was pretty shy. I remember going to one of my first AFCA coaches conventions and going to some of the director of football operations meetings and kind of sitting in the back of the room and, not wanting to engage, but it was like, man, maybe I want to do some more of this one day and help lead. And I met a few of those guys and, now I've been able to be on that executive committee for a little bit and try and help some of those younger guys. And I always try and take the time to talk to some of those younger individuals in the field and answer
Yeah.
questions when I can. So
Yeah.
I think that stuff is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for being a part of my informational interview.
Yes, of course.
Next question. Obviously, I'll preface this in saying, and this isn't a new idea, but sports isn't Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. It's nights, it's weekends, it's holidays, all those things. For you personally, what is the key to maintaining a good work-life balance? How do you not get overwhelmed with your career and still make time for family and friends and things you enjoy doing outside of work?
Yeah, this is a tough question. I definitely sacrificed a lot younger in my career, and
Sure.
it was something that I knew going into it. I kind of needed to do, but I also wanted to do. I really believed in kind of the coaching staff I was with and some of the people that I was with, and was willing to make those sacrifices
Okay.
for what we were trying to achieve together. I think anybody looking to be in the sports industry, you know, or you have to realize really quickly that your life is going to be a little bit different, and you do have to give up those things.
Yeah.
Um, I personally get excited and energized to be working those odd days that other people aren't. When people are watching us, play football around
Sure.
Christmas time or around Thanksgiving, that kind of excites me, and I
Okay.
enjoy that. But there are sacrifices that definitely go into it. From a work-life balance standpoint, to me, you just have to have those things that you're able to do to recenter you.
Sure.
For me, those things are sports, as odd as it sounds, but it's playing noon hoops at lunchtime
Okay.
and doing stuff like that with your coaching staff or with other members in the athletics department. I play with people on campus here too, and it's a great way to network. Another networking plug, but
Yeah.
meeting people that can help you out. um, but I've become more of an avid golfer now.
Okay.
But there'd be nights going home from some tough losses or other things going on campus, and I would just have to go for a walk or
Yeah.
go down to the beach and kind of just take a second and put
Yeah.
things in perspective, because I think we put the blinders on in this industry a little bit sometimes, that football or basketball or sports are the only thing that matter, and
Yeah.
there's a lot more out there. But we are able to do some incredible things and bring a lot of joy to people's lives.
Yeah.
And that was the last thing I guess I would touch on, just to answer your question, is while I've sacrificed a lot from time and time with family and other things, um, my family has been able to experience some pretty incredible moments.
Yeah. Absolutely.
And it's so much fun to have them be part of that and have
Yeah.
them share in some of that success and celebration. And
Yeah.
I think of my parents being able to be at the Rose Bowl game when we won that in 2017, and
Nice.
going to the hotel and having dinner with them afterwards, and um, you know them being so excited for me, but also being so excited and talking about how incredible experience that was.
Yeah.
And they've been able to go to some pretty special games and other things, and being able to give that back to them is pretty awesome.
Yeah. Love that. Love that for sure. I've had a few guests that have talked about that, about including their families and in the things that they get to do, and it makes it
Hmm.
just as it makes it more fun. Obviously, it's fun for you to be there and be a part of the team, but when your loved ones are there, it's an extra bonus.
Definitely.
Final question in the advice portion. I know you've hit on a few things. Just wanted to give you one more opportunity if there's anything else. The sport management field is a very competitive field to break into, as we've discussed. Do you have any other tips, tricks, or insights that people can use to help set themselves apart in such a crowded occupation?
Yeah, I don't know if I have any other advice to set somebody apart. I think people need to realize that the sports industry is extremely competitive. A lot of people want to get into it, but
Mm-hmm.
there are so many opportunities to
Yeah.
get in. Um, all of these universities, professional teams are looking for interns at different times of year. They're looking for people to come in and help, and really want to help people learn. And so I think there are a lot more opportunities out there than people realize. And that was something that I think I was able to learn, like I talked about, while I was in college, and some
Yeah.
people learn that later. But I still always am learning of more and more jobs that there are in the industry. The industry has grown tremendously. And even just from a football standpoint, um, you know, what these teams used to look like 10 years ago, from
Sure.
having 2 graduate assistants to now 4 on the field. And we're talking about expanding that. The mental health area,
Yeah.
nutrition, sports performance. There are so many jobs and careers in sports, and it's really important in this day and age. And so I think all of those areas have students, have interns, have areas and opportunities for people that want to learn. And you don't have to commit to it for a year necessarily, even a
Yeah.
few months, but figuring out kind of which area you gravitate towards. I think that's the most important thing I would say, is touching those areas so that you're able to learn and figure out what you really want to do and
Yeah.
maybe what your skill set is best for to be successful.
I like it. I like it. Bringing it home, final few questions. First question, what is the most heartwarming or memorable sport moment you witnessed or experienced? Maybe something we as the casual fan would never see on TV, but you had the chance to witness or experience.
Gosh, that's a tough question. Um, I think there's so many moments,
Yeah,
and I'm kind of getting chills just thinking about it. But um, the pure joy you see on kids' faces, people's faces who interact with these sports programs, um, because for a lot of people, they've invested so much into these teams as fans,
sure.
and they see the universities, the teams as a part of their family and a part of their everyday lives. And the success and failures, they live that more than anybody
Yeah,
sometimes. But seeing that joy on a young kid's face, even just getting a high five from a player, um,
yes.
doing things such as, feeding people on Thanksgiving and going out with players and some of our old coaches years ago and just going in our local community here in South Central. And, we weren't taking cameras with us and all that to
Yeah,
post it. It was just, we were trying to help out in the community. But even those guys or people that were a little bit less fortunate were so happy to have a meal, but they also built that connection just with the
yep,
players and like, we're excited to watch you guys play on Saturday and we hope you guys kick ass and all those things. And
yeah,
you just see how people that you don't think you're touching are so invested in it. So
yeah,
I think those definitely are an impact and memorable. There's other things that are memorable for sure too. But to me, it's always been the impact that we're able to have. I had some friends that I hadn't seen in a long time, and they came down for a game and gave them a couple pregame passes, and them just able to be on the field for a minute. We sometimes take that for granted because we do it on a regular basis.
yeah,
But it means so much to people, and it's pretty special to see that pure joy
yeah,
when it hits them.
yeah. I mean, it's pure joy for me getting to do it. The few games I've got to do it this year, being on the field, so I can
Yeah, and
understand for sure.
I mean, I'll say another moment that just hit me is, when I walk down those Coliseum steps,
Yeah,
um, I still get chills and I still think about everything that's gone on in that building and the history of it.
yeah,
It's pretty incredible to think of everything that has happened in that building and kind of walking in the footsteps of athletes, the Pope, presidential candidates,
yeah,
other people that have made history in that building or made history
yeah,
around the world. And we're able to kind of honor them every Saturday that we play there.
yeah, yeah. I wanted to second the whole uh working with kids and seeing the smile on their face, having worked Trojan Walk a few times this season, and seeing the players get off the bus and walk to the locker room, and the kids are all pumped to get a high five, and they may not even know who the individual player is, but the fact that that individual plays for USC and gave them a high five, they're pumped on. So I
Yep.
definitely second that for sure.
Oh, yeah.
Uh, Next question: if you could switch roles with any athlete for one day, who would it be and why?
Gosh, switch roles with an athlete. So go play their sport, be that
Yeah.
athlete.
Yep. Unless they're
Well,
retired, then you just be them retired. But
I always wanted to be a baseball player growing up.
okay,
Baseball was my first passion.
okay,
So I think, switching roles with a baseball player, probably I was a pitcher, being a pitcher. I think they've got a great gig, or maybe being a bullpen catcher.
uh,
Just watching those guys, they just they're living the life, I
they
think.
are. Yeah.
Um, I'm an avid golfer now, I would say, and a
Okay.
professional golfer, I think, would be a fun day in the life switch.
Yeah.
Um, hitting off the first tee with all those people around and stuff, I think would be pretty exhilarating and
Yeah.
getting to experience that. But yeah, I don't know. I don't know if there's a specific athlete that I would want to switch places with.
Okay.
Um, but I think there's some cool things there with baseball, golf. I mean, I don't know that I would do football actually, but I would do some of the other ones for sure.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned baseball, so this next question will be in your wheelhouse.
Okay.
If you could choose one song to play every time you walked into a room, what would you choose and why? So, what is Woody's walk-up song?
See, I don't know that I have a walk-up song.
I
Gosh. The one that pops in my head right now, and maybe it's not very fitting for me, but
Okay.
the Mets closer Diaz had that trumpet
Oh
song
yeah,
that was hitting for a while there.
it did.
And I think that just brings the energy. It's got a good beat, and then that
All right.
trumpet hits.
Yeah.
And to me, it's something like that that gets the crowd going. I
Okay.
think that's one of the special things in sports is when there's something like when Sandstorm plays at some of these stadiums. It's
Yeah.
Virginia Tech, right? When they play that on the opening and
Yeah.
they get everybody jumping and all that kind of stuff. I mean, something like that would be pretty special because everybody kind of gets that feeling in them.
Yeah. The stadium's filled and everyone's pumped
Yeah.
that Woody's coming into the game. Final.
Wild thing, the old major league days.
Oh, there you
Wild
go.
thing. That was always fun to watch. Yeah.
Love it. Sports often brings people together and creates unforgettable moments. You mentioned a little bit ago your parents got to experience the Rose Bowl victory with you. Can you share a personal sports memory that left a lasting impact on you? Maybe it was the Rose Bowl. Maybe it was something else that comes to mind. Again, I'm sure there's many, many, many. But if you could pick one to share.
Yeah. Gosh, there have been a lot. I think some really fond memories were with Coach Helton. I spent, gosh, a lot of years with Coach Helton here and was his chief of staff, kind of his whole tenure as head coach. And I think there were obviously some highs and lows, and we had some really high highs, and there were some days where it would just be he and I in the office together, and getting to spend some of that time one-on-one, just talking about life, but also talking about what we wanted to do
Sure.
for the future of the program. And a Rose Bowl, everybody's celebrating. We do everything on the field with the families, the players, everything, and then people are all leaving the locker room. And it was kind of he and I in his office at one point, and we just were able to take a moment and really let it all sink in, which was really special, for all the sacrifice time, everything that we had gone through to
Yeah.
get to that point, was a pretty special moment. So yeah, I'll probably stick with that.
All right. All right. Rose Bowl it is.
Yep.
Woody, thanks so much for taking a few minutes just to share about your journey in sports. I personally learned a lot more about you than I knew before, and hope that people listening can take something away from your experience. But thank you for taking time to be on the podcast.
Awesome. Thanks, Casey. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you for watching another episode of the Suits in the Stadium podcast. You can still find the audio version of our podcast wherever you get your podcasts, including Spotify, Apple Music, Google Podcast, iHeartRadio, and many more. New this season, you can find the video version of our podcast on our YouTube channel. Please make sure, if you haven't already, to follow us across social media platforms, including LinkedIn, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. We release new episodes every Monday, so make sure you subscribe so you never miss a single episode. Thanks so much, and we'll see you in the next one.